Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed the video. So let's get started. So my first project is actually just like a little wooden stool, and I've had it forever, and it was just a plain old white stool. And so I decided that I was going to get it all fancied up and make it pretty because I'm going to be putting it back in my bedroom. So what I do first is I want to put some molds around the top edge of the stool. And this is the IOD trimmings mold. Now, because it's going to be a stool that might get kind of knocked around, I decided to make the molds out of resin. And resin is a 1-to-1 ratio. And you mix it up and it sets up in about 10 minutes. And then I put them on with Titebond glue. Now, let me tell you what I first started. I was just going to paint the top white and paint those trims white, and then I put a stamp on it, and then I didn't like it. So I decided that I would use Dixie Belle French linen. So I went back and I painted the whole top of it, and I painted back over those trimmings because once that dries, I want to use a stamp on it. But I liked that contrast of that French linen and then that creamy color for the base of it. And I actually had it all finished, or so I thought, until I decided to change colors on it. But I really liked the way it turned out at the end. So once all that paint dried, I'm going to be stamping the IOD Floral Swag stamp. And it's really pretty, but I'm going to be layering my stamp. So let me tell you what I do. I go ahead and put it up there like what I want. And I want this bird to be resting on this swag. And so I put that down first. So I stamp it with IOD black ink. And I've already determined all the positions for where I want everything. So this is the very large swag that's going to go on top of that bird. But because I don't want to mess up any of the detail on the bird, I'll be using a mask in just a minute. And so you put that little mask on top of it. And then when you put that second stamp on, then it doesn't mess up like the little tail of the bird. You still see all the detail because that mask makes sure that that bird just kind of pops off of that stool. And this is just a little tool that I saw a friend use recently to help with the stamping. And so I ordered one off of Amazon and I love it. Now that little medallion is just another little stamp that I decided to put on at the end. But I love the way it turned out, and I'm going to make sure that there's plenty of coats of sealer on it because I know it's going to be used a lot. And I know the grandkids are probably going to be messing with it because they know that Grammy likes to have her little stool, beside her. Not necessarily put my feet on, but put my water bottle on and, different things like that if I'm back in the bedroom. So, what do you think? And I actually put this on the Facebook IOD Creative Tribe, and I had a lot of good feedback. So my next project is going to be just a little unusual because I wanted to use the IOD Fruitful Harvest mold because I got some beautiful sunflower paper from Jonelle at Decoupage Central, and I'm an affiliate for her. And so she was able to get some of the Fruitful Harvest in, which that was released I'm not real sure how long ago, but it was a fall release. And so, a lot of people may have it, but some people, they just never did get one. And she's got some, and I'm not sure if it's retired, but she does have a few of those left. But I wanted to not stamp it. I wanted to stamp on clay. So I thought about how, my mom, would make biscuits and she'd put flour on the counter, and then she would roll the dough on it. So that's what I did with that stamp. And the DOS air dry clay, I put cornstarch all over that little mold, and then I rolled out the clay, and then I just put that stamp right on it, and then I used a brayer to push that detail into it. And I love the way it turned out. So that's sitting off to the side, and now I'm using the IOD Vintage Texture stamp. And over to the, up at the top, that's just an old sign that I thrifted, and I painted it with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. But I want that little extra detail behind this pumpkin, so that was why I used the vintage textures. So I go ahead and get my pumpkin up there, but I don't glue it down yet. So this is the paper, and I really love it. It's got 4 different little bouquets of sunflowers. And this, I believe this might be a digital download. It is. And so if you want that, then you print it out on your own printer. Now, I do not have a laser printer. Mine is inkjet. And normally when I tear rice paper, I'll use like a little water pen, but I don't know if the ink would run on that, so I'm just tearing that just with my fingers. And even though this piece of rice paper has 4 different little bouquets on it, I'm going to use almost all of them because I want to have a bouquet of sunflowers kind of sticking out of that pumpkin. But I won't go ahead and use my X-Acto knife and cut off the stem of the pumpkin because in a way it looks like maybe a fish bowl tank type of vase. And so that's why I decided to put the sunflower sticking out of it, just because it reminds me of just a big round vase. So I go on and decide where I'm going to put all my sunflowers, and I put them down with Pent Art decoupage varnish and glue. And I'm about to run out of that, so I'll be starting to use Mod Podge again. And so I get them all laid out like I want, and then I decide to put my pumpkin down. And so I turn it all over, and I use Tight Bond Thick and Quick. And if you've watched my channel, you know that I cannot stand glue on my fingers. And gracious, I got so much glue because this pumpkin's large. And so I go ahead and get all the glue, and then I'm going to flip it over and put it on that sign. So then, because I've got the sunflowers up at the top, then I pull out my IOD sunflower mold because I want to use some of the leaves on that mold. And so there's a little skinny leaf, and I make 3 of those. And then I'm going to put that up at the top of the pumpkin. And then that leaf that I'm molding now, I'm going to make 2 of those, and I'm going to put that down at the bottom as if the pumpkin is sitting on the ground and there's just some little leaves like around it. But I don't glue them down yet because I want to make sure that the placement of my bow is where I want it to be so that the leaves are kind of, in sync with the bow, and it's not up too far or down too far. But I want the leaves to kind of be like stuck up underneath the bow. And this is just one of those little mini Bowdabras where it's really easy to make a bow. And this is just some lace that I got from burlapfabric.com, and then just some burlap fabric. And so it just makes a pretty little bow. And then I trim it all off and kind of get that placement together before I start gluing everything down. But this little mini Bowdabra, you can get it off of Amazon, and it's a neat little tool to have if you're going to be putting bows on a lot of your projects. Guys, excuse my voice, it just kind of keeps getting kind of froggy on me. So now that I know where the bow's going to be, then I go ahead and glue down the little leaves. Now I've already painted that pumpkin with Rust-Oleum cream, chiffon cream. And so once those molds get down, then I'm going to paint those as well. And I'm one of those people that likes to paint it after it's been sitting on there for just a little bit. I don't like to wait until it's dry all the way because I think painting it reduces a lot of the cracking. But sometimes people just don't want to do that because, it makes it a little bit harder to paint sometimes. But I just like to go ahead and do it right then. Now, before I put that bow on, though, I want to make sure that all the detail on that pumpkin really stands out. And so I take Dixie Belle Voodoo Gel Stain, and at first I use just the natural color because I thought that that would be good. And then after I got it all on, then I decided to use a little bit of the Dixie Belle Voodoo Gel Stain in Tobacco Road because I use that more in like the little crevices. And if you've not used this before, then you just brush it on. And then I use like little shop towels that I buy at Home Depot. And then you just wipe it back. And then what happens is that gel stain kind of sinks into the detail and the crevices. Now, once I started putting it on, then I decided that I really just kind of wanted to brush it over like the entire sign and on those leaves. And it, took me sort of a little bit to get it all finished, but I really liked the result. But my intentions initially were to just only use the natural stain. Because actually, one of my really sweet viewers, I did a project, and I think it was like last September, and I only used the Tobacco Road gel stain, and she mentioned that this was a really good stain. And so I picked some up, and man, I really like it a lot because it gives it just enough, brown in it to kind of pull out the detail. But because that pumpkin has so many little lines and crevices, I just felt like they wasn't going to be noticed if I didn't use a darker stain on it. And so I just go all over and I wipe it back a little bit. And the IOD ink, once it has set, it is permanent. So you don't have to worry about, it bleeding when you put that voodoo gel stain on it. And then we'll also put gel stain around the edges of this sign as well, just so that it all looks good together. And now I'm finally ready for my bow. So I put it down with hot glue, and then I put like a little button on top of the little knot just to add that little detail. But before you see the final project, let me show you something else. So this is one of those little wood tags that I bought, I think a little pack of 6 off of Amazon, and it's kind of large. And I paint all of this with the Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. I paint the front and the back. And those edges, they're dark brown, and I don't really, you could leave it like that, but I didn't want to. So I go all around and get all of it painted. But these little wood tags are actually wood, and they're not that pressed wood, so they hold up really well. Now, once I get it all painted, I got this paper from Decoupage Central, and I love it. It is so beautiful, and it's just like a little vase of sunflowers. And so it's got even something up at the top that says Farmer's Almanac. So I, glue it all down, and I think I used Mod Podge this time. And then once it dries, I just used my little sander from the Dollar Tree, or I could have used my finger sander. And that helps get those little edges off of the decoupage paper. But now I still try to sand it pretty lightly. So I used some of that same lace ribbon to make a little hanger on it and to make another bow. But then I decided I wanted to do something special down at the bottom. So this is one of those new IOD molds that was in the spring release called Conservatory Labels. So I have put cornstarch in my mold, and then I use Dawes Air Dry Clay. Now I get mine from Hobby Lobby because every other week it's on sale, and it's a really good deal. And so get it all molded up, and then I'm gonna put the words for sunflowers in French. So I'm not gonna attempt to try to say it. Well, for some reason, I thought if I put those letters on there, I needed to use a brayer to kind of push them down. And oh, good gracious, when I did, that label just kept on spreading, and it got real misshapen. And so I was so aggravated with myself. But it was, I think, maybe one of the first times I had stamped into one of these labels. And so I put it on with Type Bond Thick and Quick down at the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to paint it with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And then I go back with a mixture of the Voodoo Gel Stain with both natural and Tobacco Road. Well, this time I just felt like it needed to be a little bit darker. So I put a little bit more of the Tobacco Road in it and then wipe it off. And I kept using the same brush. And so I ended up using a little bit more of the Tobacco Road. But look at these two projects. Now, yes, that could be a fall project, but honest to goodness, have it sitting on a wall with the sunflowers right now is such a beautiful spring or summer, and it will even go into the fall sign that you can sit out on a shelf or you can hang on your wall. And there's the French word for sunflowers. Oh, and I added 2 little flowers from the IOD primitive mold just to kind of anchor the sides of that label. And I love both pieces, but look at those flowers sticking out of that little jar on that little wood tag. So if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and become part of our family. Okay, so if you are a big fan of IOD, you know that they have decided that the inlays are going to be a limited release. But Jonelle was able to get I think 2 cases of this Rose Chance, which was a paint inlay that came out, I don't remember when, and it was extremely popular. And so she was able to get her hands on some of that. And so it's really a neat product. And there comes with 8 sheets, and that's all it is on those 8 sheets, and it's wonderful. So you paint it, then you put another coat of paint on it, and that's when you put the inlay. And I lay the inlays over. I've already decided where they're going to be, and I mist them, and then I lay them on top of that wet paint, and then I mist it again. Then I kind of dab at it in case there's any water that's kind of pooled around. It takes about an hour for it to dry. And then you mist it again, and you wait 60 seconds, and oh my goodness, look, it is so beautiful. I love it, and I've done this before, this paint inlay on this particular color paint, which is Rust-Oleum Serenity Blue, and I love the way it turned out. Now, if you'll notice up at the top of the screen, I've got like a little baking rack, so when you finish those inlays, lay them off to the side. Let them dry, because you can use them up to 3 times, if not more than that. But isn't that just beautiful? So one of the things you'll see in just a minute that I had to get my husband to help me do was I put like a little hooks on it that I got at Hobby Lobby. But I wanted to put like just something up at the top. So this is the bigger little mold from the IOD Conservatory labels. And it's real kind of dainty. And I think it kind of mimics the detail in the little key hooks that I've got that you're going to see in just a minute. And so see those little hooks? My husband helped me put that on because, well, it's cast iron, and I got those at Hobby Lobby, and, well, it was kind of hard to get on because it was not flat, so I really had to work hard to get those things screwed in. So I'm going to put that label up at the top in the very center, and the detail around it mimics that detail in those little hooks. And I just love the way it turned out. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but because you use the cornstarch, after I get it all down, I use a really, really soft bristle brush to kind of brush off that cornstarch. Now, I go back and I paint it with DIY White Swan because that was the only color. So before I show you it's all finished, I wanted to use those inlays again, and I wanted to show you how you can use them more than one time. So I decided I would get these little boxes at Hobby Lobby because they were on sale this week. Now I had to buy 2 of them because I have 2 granddaughters, and what you make for one, you got to make for the other. So I painted them with that same color, and then all those inlays that have been laying off to the side that have been drying are now ready to use again. And actually, some of the inlays that I'm using, this will be the 3rd time that I've used it. So I just, paint the little boxes up with that same color, and it's got like a little drawer at the bottom, and then the top lifts up, and it's got a little mirror in it so they can put their jewelry in it. And then they love it. I showed it to them today, and they're so excited. But I told them that I needed to kind of finish up a little bit more detail because I want to make sure I seal it real good. So once again, with that inlay, you go through all those steps. You put the second coat of paint on it. Then you lay the paint inlay on it. You mist it, let it dry, and then you pull it up. Now, look up at the top on that first one. A lot of that inlay did not transfer, but it's because that one may have been the third use of that. But I like it because it makes it look real vintage. Well, because that one had a flower that was very distinct up in the top left-hand corner, I knew that both of them needed to make sure they had a flower up at the top. So I just cut out a little flower and did that again. Now, because I want to always do just a little bit more, now I'm making some little resin molds with the IOD Cameo mold. And the resin is Amazing Casting Resin, and it's part A and part B, 1-to-1 ratio. You stir it up, and you need to be ready to pour it in. You don't have to put anything in the molds in advance. And over on beside all of the little molds, the IOD molds, it tells you how much resin you need to use. Now, I have that second little mold out because I'm needing to make some more little molds for a project that I made for my grandson recently. And I needed to make some more little resin bugs. And so once they get all set up, then I put them on the top, the little cameo mold on top with Tight Bond Thick and Quick. And it sets up really fast. And I make sure that both of the boxes both have a cameo and it's in the right place. It's in the exact place. Otherwise, we're going to be having some arguments. And then once I painted them all up and I used gold gilding wax on it, and I love it. I love all of these pieces. And then I stamped an M into that one little piece right there because that's my granddaughter's last name's initial. And so I love this rose chintz inlay, and I've used it so much, but I still have 5 sheets of it. So I love inlays. The IOD inlays, they give you so much money, the best bang for your bucks. And then look at those sweet doilies. I have this viewer who is a very dear friend of mine, and she made those for me. She lives in Texas, and she is a sweet, sweet lady, and she made those for me. So I know she's going to watch this video, so I wanted to give a shout out to her because she's just the kindest woman. But I love that rose chintz. All right, my last project. This is a little sign that I thrifted. And this, I just got this paper from John L. And I love the flag part of it. Well, the day that I got it, one of my friends sent me a little surprise in the mail. And I thought, I got to do this right now. So you'll see it in just a minute. But because this is kind of rustic, I used the IOD Barnwood. I think it's called Barnwood Plank Stamp. I don't use it very much. Yep, it's Barnwood Planks. And I use IOD Stone Gray ink because I don't want it to be like really in your face. And the Stone Gray ink, is just light enough to where it shows up and there's still a lot of detail. But because I've got that stamp on it, it may show through when I decoupage this paper. And I don't want it to. So this is a piece of parchment paper that I've laid down on my table, and I'm getting it all taped down so it won't move around. And then I taped that decoupage paper on top of that, just very, very little at the corners. And now I'm going to paint the back of it with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And then that way, you're not going to see any detail from that stamp up underneath it. And then I just lay it on there. I need a little bit of room down at the bottom. But when I decoupage it on, I put a little bit of glue and then, pull it down. And sometimes I'll use saran wrap to kind of like pull it down and make sure there's no wrinkles. And I get it all pulled on. And now look, this is what my friend Kendra sent me. She sent me these little teeny stars, and they're all different shapes. And I was so excited. And I told her, I said, this must be a God moment because I just got that new paper and she sent me these stars and I was so excited. So I glued them all around the 3 edges. And so I think one of the things I forgot to show you was I made another conservatory label and I put that down at the bottom and I stamped inside of it the Roman numerals for 2024. I wanted to be able to stamp like God Bless America, but that was just too much. So I get all of those little stars glued on and I go back and I paint over them with the Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And I just go on and paint over that glue too, because I just smeared that glue all over it and then put the stars in it. So once it dries clear, but you can still see a little bit of the glue. And then I just took that IOD stone gray ink and just rubbed over on top of those stars to bring out that detail. And look, isn't that just so pretty? And now I had to Google what the Roman numerals would be for 2024 because, well, it's been a long time since I took math. But I made this sign specifically because Kendra sent me these little stars, and she sent me some other little stars that I tried to use as a hanger, and I just couldn't make it look right. So it's just going to be a little shelf sitter. But I just think it's so sweet. And, you know, we've got one of our, I don't know if it's Veterans Day. Oh, it's Memorial Day coming up. And so we've got that coming up, and then we'll have the 4th of July. And this is just a pretty little shelf sitter. Well, friends, this has kind of been a longer video, but we're finally at the end of it. And I'm so excited with all of my projects today. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. And in the comments below, make sure to let me know what's your favorite. Now, also, if you are not part of the Facebook IOD Creative Tribe group, you need to go on Facebook and join it because I share all of my videos and some of my projects lately. And I shared pictures of that stool, and I've had over 100 people to respond and really like that stool. And then I also put the pumpkin on there. So it's a great place to get good ideas. But I love everything I made today. And my granddaughters are so excited about this rose chintz because they're all about girly girl and frou-frou. And I guess you can probably figure out who was the one that influenced them when it came to that. So, yeah, we like to be princesses around here. And they love to dress up in all kind of like little princess clothes. So, make sure to let me know which is your favorite. So once again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And I'm going to try really, really hard to have another video out for Monday because I've got some really pretty projects. Have a good week.